welcome back to the show. I'm here with Sophia Eng, who published a blog post that went viral talking about women in tech. And her post was all about Hear Us Roar. It was a manifesto for women and minorities in startups, tech, and business communities. So we're going to be talking about how men and women are different and the same in tech, and how traditional female characteristics actually can help in programming. And that applies to both men and women who have those characteristics. And how she came to overcome her fear about publishing her first article that went viral, and how writing articles and speaking events can help your career. So we'll talk about a number of other things too, but welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so much, Michael. Very excited to be here. Really appreciate and really honor the opportunity to share more of my story and my experiences on being a woman and minority in tech.
Yeah. So you actually have been researching this for a while. You have you're basically a growth hacker, or you help people improve their conversion rates and marketing on their websites and startups, particularly with women. And also you're involved in the Google Iamremarkable movement and several other initiatives, and we'll talk more about those later. But you've been researching how men and women are different online. So, or maybe they're just the same and you can't tell. What's the scoop?
So, I have been sitting on some of this research for a couple of weeks now, and looking at the differences, not just biologically, but even how women and men make different purchasing decisions, right? And how important it is for businesses to understand how to speak directly to women and men as well, and how to create products around that. So it all just came to head that week when, the Google Manifesto came out that Friday, and I was leading an event right at Google SF in the headquarters building for their Iamremarkable campaign, which is essentially to help women share their voices. So I thought, well, there's no better opportunity than this weekend to literally be heads down and put all of my research together and address this manifesto and encourage women and empower women to speak up in their lives and in their workplaces.
So we'll put a link to the manifesto you put out, Hear Me Roar, in the show notes. But what are some of the key things you have discovered in all the research you've done between men and women in tech?
So I would say the number one thing is understanding that women are the main purchasing. We make the main purchasing buying decisions for all households. It's like 80%. Yet when we do research, when we run tests online, which is primarily what I do, it's based off of general buying patterns, which are typically more male centric. Right? So it's hard to tell whether or not the messaging, the design, a button color, for example, is resonating with a male or a female. But it's really important for a business to understand the differences when you can target a woman, because we're the hyper buyers, but we're also the most loyal. And so we're likely to buy from a brand, we're most likely to purchase again. And not only that, we are very social creatures. So we tend to share that out with our family and friends, which is really important for businesses to understand, because word of mouth marketing is one of the best ways to market.
Wow. So that means if companies are not paying attention to this and they're selling to consumers or selling anything on their website, they could be missing out in a big way.
They're missing out in a big pool. And I'm actually writing a huge blog post. So that's my second article that will be coming out following this manifesto that I wrote in response to the ex-Googler.
Yeah. So all the stuff you've looked at, is it that men and women are just totally different at birth and there's nothing you can do about it? Or is it social conditioning? Or where do these differences come from?
In terms of, we've obviously got biological differences, yes. And there are also social conditioning that happens and takes place. And specifically in my response in this manifesto was the fact that social conditioning is what allows more of the men and boys to be attuned to more of the tech advances in education and experiences, where at a young age, for example, girls are introduced to more of the softer skills, or playing with dolls, and less of the robotics, less of Legos. And so that's what I'm hoping to change, is to bring more awareness to it. I've got daughters, and, starting at a young age, we've got some dolls and we've got some play houses lying around, but I'm also exposing them to things in STEM, right? So not just all of the I guess what would be considered like the female dominant, the girl dominant toys, but things like Legos and robotics, and she enjoys it. Although, even now in those classes, they're mostly boys. So I'm working with Girls in Tech. I've got an interview coming up with Girls in Tech and Cosmo to really talk about how we can encourage girls more. The data shows that, girls, even though we graduate with more than half of college graduates are women in the US, only 30% of women are actually represented in the larger corporations. So there's something there, right? And I'm hoping to change that.
So what kind of skills are you talking about as far as tech skills that men and women have? Because when we think of developers, the traditional people certainly who don't do development might think, oh yeah, that's like a totally pocket protector and glasses kind of nerd thing, which that's not to say there aren't women who wear pocket protectors or glasses, but what are the things, the skills that good people in tech have?
I think for number one, it would be empathy, right? And if you're talking about technology, you're talking about innovation, and innovation comes from empathy, and empathy comes from understanding the consumer, the buyer, understanding the pain points, so that you can create creative ideas and products to solve that problem.
So being able to understand other people, it's not typically, people don't write software locked into a basement, not interacting with other people. I think that's right. Part of it. First of all, you're going to interact with other developers, testers, clients. So having the skills to communicate is important there.
It's very important.
And secondly, most software is written for other humans to use. I mean, there is software that's written for other computers to use, but that's a very small fraction of software development.
Right, absolutely.
So, and then what about some of the things, the ability to think logically and be goal focused? Is that something that's either male or female, or?
To be goal focused, to think logically, I think that's definitely something that is gender neutral, right? But it's how we approach it. And so again, logic is being goal focused. It's just, in terms of what I wrote about, like being systematized, in the manifesto, he addressed the fact that women are less systems oriented. And so my argument is we are systems oriented, right? We are the ones that are balancing a lot of the things in our lives, and also understanding, the biology, the programming history of like computers, the early inventors of computer science and programming were women. And even in our daily lives, right? Even in our daily lives, for how we balance everything, right? Like being women in tech, a minority, balancing family, friends, social life, and all of that. Like, we have to have systems in place in order to do all of this.
Yeah,
not to say that men are less systems oriented, but just to argue the fact that women are systems oriented.
Right. I mean, I know in your article you mentioned you have lots of systems you use at work and at home just to get everything done in the time you have available. So,
I think it just stems from being in optimization and working in optimization. It just, I'm always constantly looking at how are things producing, how is my time spent, how is money spent, and how to best optimize that. So it kind of spills over to every other area of my life, to be quite honest.
And just for folks who don't know some of the key women involved in software, Ada Lovelace helped Charles Babbage create the first ever computer program. I think that was 150 years ago. And that was a mechanical computer. And then Grace Hopper pioneered the invention of COBOL, which I know that's not a popular language these days, but it did have billions of lines of code written for it. So,
Right.
And many other important women too. So let's talk a little bit more. You mentioned empathy is important in technology. Are there any other traditional female characteristics that either men or women have, but are viewed as female characteristics that help in development or programming?
I'd say, honestly, empathy is one of the things that helps a lot with design thinking and developing products and being innovative. And I found that throughout the businesses that I've created and also working with large, right? So even startups, small businesses, and large enterprise software companies, it all boils down, for me, the way that I found it to be really successful is really understanding empathy. Case in point, just growth hacking this article, letting it go viral or having it go viral, a lot of it is empathy in there. And it applies through all, obviously programming as well, but how we do businesses and how products and services should be created.
And you mentioned before we hit record an organization called Mother Coders that helps younger women get involved in coding. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So actually, Mother Coders is a nonprofit organization that I am involved in. And it's essentially to, because knowing that women we have that empathy, and even more so moms, right? And having that, we need that input of design thinking into our products and services. Mothers need to be women need to be a part of the product development cycle. So what Mother Coders set to do is to essentially provide childcare for moms, women with children, to actually sit in a classroom to get the training for coding skills. And I haven't seen any other organization that's done this, but this is a phenomenal organization. And so many women, a lot of my cohort have gone on to be reintegrated into the tech world, gotten promotions and raises. And then there's also an entrepreneurial track, which is the track that I'm on. And so it's really helped out a lot in terms of getting women back into the marketplace, but also the businesses also benefiting from the fact that women are part of the decision-making and part of the product development for their products and services.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. Often when people have children, it's hard to do a full-time job. They take time off for a year or two with their children, and then they want to go back into work, but maybe they don't want to go back full-time. Maybe they want something part-time. Maybe they want to be able to telecommute some of the time. And certainly in my company, we encourage people to do that because, you have people who are very skilled, but they're sitting at home doing nothing, and they could be doing an engaging job. Right. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for companies to.
Absolutely, for companies to embrace this, more flexible workplaces. But,
and that's for both men and women. I've met men who have young kids and they don't want, they want to spend some time with their kids.
Absolutely. And men, I talk about this in the article, but I truly, honestly feel that men are a very critical part of this journey for us, right? We work alongside the men, and men also, they need to become our allies to help other women get the recognition, help us, with the supportive community, bring us into the conversations that we may not be involved in, and to really include us.
So you mentioned that this was the first article you published, and you were a little nervous hitting publish. Tell us how you overcame that fear you had.
Yeah, so it was a big moment for me, honestly. I mean, it was really the entire weekend I had focused on writing a really good article to as a response to the Google Manifesto. But the moment where it came, where I had to hit that big green button to hit publish, I hesitated. This is me in the raw. It's a vulnerable moment. It's apparently like an 18-minute read. I think it was like 10 pages, single space that I worked on this, right? So a lot of this, and it was a fear of what are people going to think? What are they going to take? But ultimately, at the end of the day, what got me to hit that publish button was knowing the fact that, you know, what other woman and a woman in minority is going to be able to respond at this time to this manifesto. And if I didn't do it, then who else is going to do it? And so it was a mission for me to hit that publish. And you know, I'm glad it got the recognition that it did. And in terms of, you know, hearing the feedback, getting the feedback from other women who have been really grateful. And I have like a running doc just to remind myself why I'm in this fight, right? Of the comments that I've gotten from the women who are really grateful for me stepping up and speaking on their behalf. But really just now being a part of the Google Iamremarkable campaign, how do I help other women do this as well? And that's the mission.
It's almost like deciding to publish this article. It was almost a microcosm of the I Am Remarkable movement, because you decided to be heard and to speak up.
Right.
And that's what the whole I Am Remarkable thing is. I don't know if
Right.
people listening have seen this. I've seen videos of it. You know, it's a group of people who get together and they each take a turn to stand up to say why they are remarkable. And maybe for the first time hearing their own voice saying great, cool things they've done.
Right. Yeah.
So
So Google did a study and they found that women are less likely to self-promote, which is why we're not you see fewer women in VP and C-level positions, right? And so the I Am Remarkable initiative was set off to really help women self-promote in a way that's authentic to them and still safe, and to also call upon other women to support each other. And that's what the I Am Remarkable series is about.
And it does help you get a raise or get a promotion or get a new job. And whether that's self-promoting in person or putting it on your resume in a clear way or writing articles or speaking at events. But there's a secondary reason. It feels good to be heard for the things you do.
Yeah. For the things that you stand for. Right. Absolutely. And the things that you do, whether at work or at home.
So, and when you were saying that you did it anyway, what occurred to me is, and I'll see if I can remember where this came from, but it was, if someone's thinking of, should I speak up or should I write an article or should I present at some conference or even attend a conference, and we'll talk about that topic in a moment. If not me, who? If not now, when?
When?
Yeah. And I'll look up who said that. I think it was someone famous.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Very inspiring.
Yeah. So do you feel that writing articles or speaking at events helps people's careers? Has it helped your career?
You know, I'm sure it has, but I think more importantly than that, it's really helped me grow personally. And I'm sure because I've grown personally, it will spill out into my professional career. But, you know, I wrote about this in the article about how it's social conditioning, right? I was not, girls and personally for me as with my culture, I was not raised to speak up. And so being able to be invited to these speaking opportunities and being able to take on, you know, write this blog post that went viral, or even taking this interview with you, Michael, has been, you know, a growing opportunity, learning opportunity that, definitely helps with this is my personal growth, but also it helps with my professional career as well.
So in the culture you grew up in, which was Vietnamese American, I think.
Yeah.
You were encouraged to be silent.
Yeah.
Basically.
I remember it distinctively with the adults sitting at the adults table. And even now when I gather with my relatives, we have the adults table and we have the children's table. And even though the children outnumber the adults at this point, we're still considered, we have kids now, right? We're still considered the children. So, right, different conversations happen. And in our culture, it's just not acceptable for you to join the adult conversation. And but it's something that I've struggled with as a child and something that I continue to struggle with, but it's, you know, it gets easier.
So I used to organize a big tech conference called CF United, and I deliberately noticed that there weren't that many women speaking, and I did outreach to get more women speakers, but it often was like pulling teeth to get women to speak. Why do you think so few women speak at conferences or even attend conferences? Because I know that, development, if it's not 50-50 men and women, it's moderately equal. Maybe it's 30-70 or whatever the exact number is. But when it comes to conferences, it's like 10 or 15% women. So very few women even attend conferences compared to their numbers in the tech community. And then even fewer speak. Why is this?
I think for me, when I've gone to attend conferences, number one, it also requires you to sell this to your manager, right? That's just talk about what happens in the workplace, is being able to sell this and why I want to go, why this is going to help me. And what we talked about with the Iamremarkable series, women tend not to speak up. And especially, there's a survey that came out and said that women are even less likely to speak up with men in the room. So, right, with the discrepancy with men and women being in the workplace, right, most likely you're going to have a male manager. And so being able to speak up and sell yourself, sell this benefit, is already a hard hurdle to overcome. But then on top of that, when you get there, you'll see the discrepancy even more. Women see there's more men. What you said, like there's only about 15-20% women. And in my experience, it's almost like a frat party, right? And then and for me, being a mom in tech, right, where I've gone to conferences in San Francisco in heels and a hospital grade pump, right? I'm sorry, this is TMI, but I'm carrying a pump with me. And unfortunately, I've been, the one to during times when we should be networking, those are my times where I need to duck away into a private room, or I need to be in the bathroom stall sometimes. And it's unfortunate. It's just not set up for women. And then you're talking about women speaking up as a speaker. Okay, so everything that we mentioned, all of the above, and then asking women. So now you're looking for women who are, top of their game, staying on top of the industry, being comfortable enough to speak. And although there are a ton of women who are top of the industry, the amount of women who even want to speak, right? And then those that want to speak, do the opportunities come for them? And so it's kind of it's an uphill battle. And so the numbers start dwindling when you get to that point. Yeah.
Well, what would it take for more women to attend events? What would it take for more women to speak at events? Because, they have a lot to share. If you've got half of your community and they're not speaking, they're not sharing what they've learned, their experiences and their insights, the whole community misses out. So, and I found that on my podcast. Admittedly, I've done my podcast outreach mostly through going to ColdFusion conferences and asking speakers if they'd like to appear on the podcast, which kind of pre-selects for everyone who's already a speaker. But it has been challenging to get women guests, even on a podcast.
Yeah. And so what I've had and what's helped me is I've actually had conferences reach out to me and say, hey, we'd really like for you to attend. I think you're the prime demographic we're looking to target. Obviously, there's other ulterior motives in having me attend, right? Yeah. But then they have actually said, hey, here's a free ticket from the CEO, from the organizer of the event. Yeah. And, just makes it easier for women to take that step, right? In having to ask, but also for managers in the workplace, there's an opportunity there to actually talk about having a conversation about personal development. What conferences do you want? Here's our budget. Give me a list of, and my manager, my previous managers, and my current manager. It's been accepted, right? But it's just hard to have that conversation and to justify which conference you want to go to. There's a lot of great conferences. Maybe it's again, I'm just kind of thinking about ideas here, but women are more social. So if you know a woman friend who's going to a conference, maybe there's some sort of an offering that you can provide so other women can join as well. And the organizer benefits, right? The conference benefits from having more women attend.
Yeah, and I think those are great suggestions. I've certainly seen conferences that have get two friends to come with you, and you all get a
Mm-hmm.
discount, or
Yeah.
which is a great way to encourage people. But
The growth marketing conferences, they do a really, obviously, right? They're growth hackers.
right,
They do a really good job at really, reaching out and handing out free tickets to both men and women, but really growing their user base. And so it's just a way to if we can grow the user base, target more women, that's a great way to do it.
The other thing I've noticed, sometimes conferences, like you said, they have a bit of a frat party atmosphere, or there can be sexist behavior, particularly involving beer, it seems to be. But I'll see if I can remember the name of this conference. There was a tech conference a few years ago that had a problem with people harassing other people at the conference. And a lot of conferences now have a code of conduct that you don't go around harassing other people. Is that part of why women don't go to tech conferences, or what's your experience?
For me, I can't speak on behalf of all the other women and why they can't go. But for me personally, that's not something that would stop me. I mean, I haven't been. I tend to go for more of the technical conferences too. So, and just there to learn. But I haven't personally experienced it, but I would imagine if that was an issue where conferences now have to, unfortunately, have a code of conduct in place for conferences, yeah, I could see how that could be a reason why women don't show. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, well, and I don't think it only happens at conferences. I think people get harassment at work as well, or elsewhere. So,
right.
Have you ever been harassed in your work, or?
More verbally. So,
yeah. How do you deal with that?
I try to handle it with grace, but I think I think I get red in the face, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've been in, it brings back a lot of unfortunate memories of me literally sitting with a group of men and having to defend the technical skills that I have, which is unfortunate, right? But you have the conversation and you present as much data, at least for me, and I can at least say that I'm luckily sitting on a lot of data that I can kind of back that up, and then come up with creative ways to solve that problem that have worked well. But yeah, it can be very infuriating, or it is very infuriating to sit there and have to defend, why you're good at what you do.
Do you think that's something, where is this coming from, that some men attack women's credibility?
I don't know. I've seen it happen in the playground with my daughters, to be honest. And it's hard for me to watch sometimes because I just want to go in there and save her and tell that little kid off. But, you have to teach her you have to teach at least, for me, I had to teach her young how to stand up for yourself. But also to teach boys too, right? If you're parents of boys, how to teach them to play nice, and it's hard, right? I don't have boys, so I can't give you that perspective, but at least for girls to really understand like your worth, your value, and how to not let people talk to you that way.
Yeah, and I'm also just thinking right now, maybe boys do this to other boys too as well. That's just how they're socially conditioned.
They are.
They're trying to figure out who's the top boy, who's the bottom boy, and how can I needle the other people to get what I want. And
right.
That's part of the other side of this equation, that men are conditioned to behave a certain way. And they lose out by that too, because if they're always in a hierarchy where they're in competition and they can't trust other men, they've lost out on an enormous resource there.
Absolutely.
So, I think this issue is a big shift that's happening. So that's why I was very excited when I read your article.
Well, thank you for getting me on the show.
Yeah. So let's just close out. Why are you so proud to be a woman in tech?
I think that this is what we're meant to do. We're innovative. Because we understand people, and not to say that men don't, but we do really want to deeply understand people, relatable, and to really dig deep into the reasons why. And being able to be on the technology side to influence the products that are created to help whatever that problem is, women, children, families, whatever that product is, to make people's lives better. I think it's so exciting to be at this, point where I can influence both and help solve problems. And ultimately, we all want to change the world, right? For good.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so exciting. And, I'm trying to see how we can use this discrepancy in women in technology for an advantage in terms of bringing more women into the fight with us. More companies. I was just at GoPro, not just Google, but I was just at GoPro the other week as well. So it's been a busy time, but really working with them in helping them hire more women. And so we hold these events. I actually am leading a 1,800 member women supporting women group. And we work very closely with companies who are trying to bring in more diversity and inclusion to their companies and businesses. So GoPro is, and a lot of these high tech companies are now encouraging women to please just get the skills that you need today, because we're hiring and we need you. And there was a study that said that and researchers predict that in 2020, there will be 1.4 million jobs available, but women are only on track to fill 22% of those jobs over the next 10 years. So, we got to start with the next generation, but we got to start with what we have today and solve this problem.
Great. So if people wanted to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah. So you can go to sophiaeng.com, join my email list, and you will get notified when I launch my new site. And also another way is to join my Facebook community. If you find us on Facebook, it's Women in Growth. And it's basically to get support from other women in the industry fighting the good fight.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate the time here.